This is me. Hi, Sarah Holmes. Okay. Alright, so today, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about Greek mythology today. Before we get into the heart of Greek mythology, I should first explain what it is. Mythology is a collection of stories or myths that explain the naturally occurring world around us, in addition to some stories that lend some kind of moral to people. Mythology is not exactly a religion, though. However, it just explains the natural world around us. Thunder and lightning were caused by an angry god, and the same god, when he was feeling generous, gave rain to people. However, religion also did develop in Greek mythology after some time. People prayed to certain gods of certain causes after a while. Other things, they would also sacrifice something to their gods, just to prove their dedication. Mythology is mostly associated with Greece. However, it does also exist in other places like Scandinavia and Rome as well. In Scandinavia, it's more about Norse gods like Thor and Loki from movies like the Avengers and stuff like that. And Rome has the same gods as Greece, they just have different personas. The most important thing to understand about mythology is that it represents the kind of life that the people had during that time. Greeks, for example, valued beauty, and they were very whimsical in their day-to-day life. They weren't very serious. So they were free to laugh at their gods and enjoy their folly and things like that, which was unheard of at the time when mythology just became popular. Furthermore, Greeks made gods in their own image, which was a huge turning point in civilization because it showed that they felt that man was the epitome of perfection, and that's what they looked up to. Greeks also felt that they needed to explain things. They loved to have an explanation behind everything. So the idea of an inexplicable beyond seemed like a horrible idea to them, and the way they corrected that was by having immortal men stand atop a mountain controlling things like thunder and lightning, and why they didn't have rain for months was because they were angry at them. Now that you guys have a basic understanding of the foundation of mythology, let's take a look at how the Greek gods came to be. So before we had the gods that we know now, the Olympians, which are the 12 major ones, there were the Titans, the Cyclopses, and the 100-handed ones. And the way they came to be was because Mother Earth, Gaia, and the sky, Uranus, had children together. And as the legend goes, Gaia fell in love with the sky, and they had children together. Their first set of children were the 100-handed ones. They had 100 hands and 50 heads. Very disgusting. Then the Cyclopses, and then the Titans. Uranus was disgusted by the 100-handed ones, and he had them all killed. After that, he imprisoned the Cyclopses, but he left the Titans be because they were all, they looked like regular people. And Gaia was furious with him because he killed all of their children, essentially. So she decided to lead an uprising against him. And her son Kronos, one of the major Titans, had led this revolt and unmanned Uranus from his throne. Then Kronos decided to marry his sister Rhea and took over the universe, as it is told. Then Kronos and his wife Rhea had 6 children. He had Hestia, Zeus, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Then Gaia foretold that he would also be overthrown by his children, so he decided to eat them. And Rhea, in an act of desperation, decided to give him rocks instead of her actual children, and he ate the rocks. After that, Zeus decided to lead a revolt against his father, and he cut him to pieces using his own Sith, and then threw him into the depths of Tartarus, which is the equivalent to their hell. And then the 6 gods and all of their children decided to take over Mount Olympus. Now that you have the whole story behind the 12 Olympians, the first and most important one that you need to know is Zeus. He's the rain god. And the reason why he's so important is because the Greeks themselves had a ton of sun, but they didn't have a lot of rain, and that's why he was super important. They needed the rain to make their food. He had the power of thunder and lightning, and he was not afraid to use it if he was displeased with people. He had two brothers, Poseidon and Hades. Hades ruled the underworld, and Poseidon ruled the sea. Hades is most often compared to Satan because the two of them had a very, very big issue with the fact that they were ruling over the dead. But the way they differ is that Hades' underworld is not just a hell, but it's a purgatory and a heaven as well. The hell is called Tartarus, and then the purgatory, where the average man's afterlife existed, was called the Fields of Asphodel, and then the heaven was saved just for extraordinary heroes like Perseus and Theseus and all the other yeses. And that was called Elysium. Poseidon ruled over all the water, and the river gods and the nymphs and all the mythical creatures that lived in the water were bowed to him. And then Demeter is next. She's the goddess of the harvest, also a very important goddess to them. Hera is the goddess of marriage and family. If people were having difficulties conceiving children, they often make sacrifices to her in an effort to, be able to have children and continue on their family line. Hestia is the goddess of hearth and home. Although she is not one of the more common Olympians, she definitely is very important to the common people because the hearth and the home is something that they feel needs to be protected. Now that you have an idea of the big six, the first that came, then I'm going to talk more about the 8 other gods and goddesses that do live on Mount Olympus, in addition to the 6. There's Apollo, Artemis, Aphrodite, Ares, Hephaestus, Hermes, Athena, and Dionysus. Okay. Aphrodite is the goddess of love, something that everybody knows about. And there's Ares, who is the god of war. And then Apollo and Artemis are twins that were born together from a woman named Leto, who was also one of the Titans. Apollo is the god of the sun. He also works a little bit in prophecy and music as well. And Artemis is the goddess of the hunt. Next is Hephaestus. Hephaestus is a really interesting god just because he's more like a black sheep. He was born with a deformity and was rejected by his mother Hera because of that. He is commonly associated with metalworking and craftsmanship. He's also the god of fire as well. Next is Hermes. He's a messenger of the gods, and he is a very skillful thief as well. He is best known for stealing the oxen from Apollo just a few hours after his birth, which is a really big deal because the symbol of Apollo is the cow or the ox. Next is Athena. Athena is the goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. Lastly, we have Dionysus, the god of wine, and he was favored among all Greeks because without wine, there was no fun. So, I've named 14 Olympians at this point, and that's a lot of people, even though I told you there were 12. They're technically 14. Hades is not considered an Olympian because he technically does not reside on a Mount Olympus. And in addition to that, Hestia is often excluded as one of the Olympians in favor of Dionysus, just because wine favors hearth, I guess. So, there really are 14 Olympians. And lastly, I just wanted to conclude with why Greek mythology has lasted so long and why it's so important. Greek mythology has so many tales. There are literally hundreds of thousands of them, majoring from very small myths to very, very big ones, like the story of Jason and the Argonauts. But the tales have lasted so long, and they've been tales like Hercules and Pandora and Prometheus have been immortalized by books and films for so many years. And the reason why mythology is so important is because it's one of the first collections of stories that talks about why man is so great and how we've lasted this entire time. And, you could even say that it's a huge metaphor for how the presence of man has been, is everlasting, sort of. And Greek mythology has been very important for the past several hundreds of thousands of years because its relevance to man, and that's why we've kept it around for so long.